Hey there YouTube, this is SJM4306, and I just got back. I guess it's sort of a thrift store, I guess you could call it, and it's 2nd Avenue, and let me just show you guys some footage of while I was there. Okay, as I said, I just got back and I spent a grand total, a whopping $7.40. Let's see what I got. First up, I found they had a couple of these old Atari games behind the counter, individually priced for about $3 each. And then I walk about, 20 or 30 feet, and they had this 3 games for $3. So... And I'm pretty sure I saw a Pitfall for $3 just on its own, so this is obviously a much better deal. You're getting 3 times the number of games for the same price. So that's the one thing about these stores. They're priced kind of randomly, so sometimes you'll find a really good deal, and sometimes you'll find something that's really not worth it. So anyway, I'll just show you what games I got. I didn't get any, well, I don't have an Atari system, so I can't play these, but I just bought these because they're kind of neat. And my dad was actually telling me he used to have an old 2600 with the wood grain on the front, and he was telling me about the cool games that he had as a kid. So I thought these were cheap enough. This would be kind of cool to start collecting. So I have Pitfall, which is in very bad condition. The label's all mottled. It's the glue underneath that kind of got a little weird. Plastic looks okay. And it's a little dusty on the inside, so I'm going to see about how to pop these open. I believe they're just tabs, but I want to be very careful because I can see here the case separates right underneath the label, and I don't want to damage this anymore if I can help it. I have a copy of Pitfall, a copy of Berserk, which I've heard of Pitfall. I think I played it at one point or another. Never heard of Berserk. I don't know if it's any good or not. But yeah, I can see definitely the cartridges look a little bit different, which is interesting. This one's actually labeled Activision. This one is not. It's just some marker writing on there. And I have a copy of Freeway. Dad was telling me he had a game as a kid that he really liked. It was You're Like a Chicken. It was basically Frogger with a chicken across a highway. I'm not sure if this is the game that he was talking about or not, but on the drive home from the store, he was telling me about that, so I thought that'd be kind of neat to find out. And the only other thing that I got, I saw this sitting. Most of their game stuff, as I've shown you guys, is behind the glass shelf. I saw this just hanging on one of the shelves near the toys for $3.99. It's a Zapper as well as an RF module for the NES, and I'm pretty sure this is official. Let's just chop this open carefully if we can. Condition wise is okay, actually. It's a little bit scratched up, but I think this is actually in better condition than the one that I already have. Let's see the RF. yeah, this is marked Nintendo RF Switch, the original Nintendo Switch. Not exactly. Anyway, I'm assuming this is working. It's marked TV on one end, antenna, so you'd screw in your antenna. This is for old TVs that didn't have composite video input, that only had like the antenna leads. You can also get an adapter from coax to add like the two little screw terminals or the two spade connectors, so you can screw it into your television's antenna port on the back. And then you'd plug it in your antenna, and this would act as a pass-through when you're not using the game console, obviously. But I believe if you tune it to channel 3 or 4 and you had your NES on, this would allow you to play your NES on an older TV. So that's just sort of neat. I don't really need this. I'm not going to use this, obviously, but it's neat to have one just as part of the collection. So yeah, pretty cool. I can already see there is... I wanted to actually do a quick teardown for you guys. I can get the NES Zapper open. This guy looks like it needs a flat head, and we can pry that open. So I can do that really quick. So let's get on that. So interestingly enough, this top part's just a separate piece, so that can come off entirely separately, and that's just 3 screws, and then there's another screw hidden here. Now, interesting thing is, originally this actually came out in, it was a darker gray color. This part was, I believe, the same color, but yeah, it was originally a dark gray color, and I'm guessing, you know, the media was all concerned about, like, and parents were concerned about child violence and whatnot, and video games and movies and all that violence. And so they wanted to make sure that these looked, you know, as little as like a gun as they could make it. So they ended up changing the color of the plastic to this bright orange so that no one could ever mistake this for an actual gun. Anyway, so we can just open this guy up carefully. And there's actually a lens in here. And, yeah, there's some double-sided sticky tape in here. Actually, this is not a lens. This is a weight. It's to weigh it down. And it's actually in 2 parts. You can see here. It's split. It's probably some kind of lead or some kind of heavier metal to give it a little bit of heft. And there's just a little foam so that when it closes, it you know, keeps it from rattling or anything. And there's a plastic lens in the front here, and you can just see that. See my finger through it. And this is just to focus the light pattern. And here's the actual photo sensor itself. And I'm guessing that's just a photo transistor, it looks like, and some metal shielding to shield the light out. And unfortunately it's soldered on, so I'm not going to be able to remove it. But there's just going to be an amplifier in there, and it looks like a transistor. So it's basically a light sensor with an amplifier. And so when light comes in from the screen, it can detect whether it's white or black, whether it's light or dark, and it sends that information to the NES. There's another weight in the back here too. Wow. And this one is a lot more solid. So anyway, yeah, that just fits in there. And then we have the trigger assembly. You can see there's a micro switch like you'd find in an arcade cabinet. That's nice and clicky there. Lift the lid on that. We can see the trigger mechanism. It's basically a lot of different springs to keep the tension on it, so that when you click this, it gives you a nice kind of clicking. So basically there's 2 parts to the trigger. There's a rocking part here, a spring to keep tension, so that when you pull it, it pushes the slide bar down and actually hits the leaf spring on the momentary switch. And then once it goes past a certain point with enough pressure, it'll actually release this latch here and let this slide back forward. So you can see that right here. So basically you can't hold down this switch. Basically it's just a one-shot trigger, but it's done mechanically. That's fascinating. And lots of little springs to get the right feel, the right tension. So let me just close this back up again. Okay, we're back together, and it's all good to go. Cord looks good, connector looks good. yeah, pretty good. Going back into my collection, awesome. Let's quickly open this guy. Okay, and we're in. And, as I expected, there's basically very little in this. It looks like some transistors. I'm seeing inductors, as well as resistors, and yeah, maybe there's some caps in there. There's a diode on the coax line. Yeah, so basically, this is just supposed to be some filtering and maybe some amplification or something like that. But yeah, very simple circuitry. And I'm sure these things, there's practically nothing in them to go wrong, so this will probably outlive my NES itself. So anyway, let's just get this back in there. Safe to go. Okay, and one last little quick thing, not really part of this video. So yeah, all in all, just to summarize, not a bad draw for about, you know, $7.50. So I'm pretty happy with that. There were a lot of other game consoles and stuff, and I would have liked to get them, but the prices just weren't that great, I think. They had a handful of DSs and whatnot for like anywhere from like 20 to 30 bucks, but I would just be pretty much reshelling them, so I didn't want to pay more than about 15 bucks for those guys, so I opted not to get those. There's a lot of stereo systems and whatnot. They always have those. I'm not really in the market to fix any of those yet, so I kind of opted not to get those. I was looking specifically for gaming-related stuff. They had a couple N64 games, but nothing great, as well as some NES and I think two NES and like a handful of SNES games. Nothing that interesting, so I opted, you know, to wait till another time. But when I came home, I got something in the mail, and it's this guy here. It's marked repair parts, and I know exactly what this is. And I'm just going to carefully open it, flip it over, and this is from my buddy Juan at Deadpan Robot, and he had sent me over some goodies, and a couple things related to upcoming projects, and yeah, some really cool things. So he had asked me if there's anything that I was interested in, and I have an old Game Boy, and I was thinking of cleaning it up and doing a restoration series and whatnot. So I thought, yeah, it would be pretty cool to get an entire, you know, new shell and snazzy it up and RGB backlight and do all that jazz, and you know, do an entire video series on that. So the shell for that is this guy here, which is a clear blue. It's very nice and matte. I have kind of green accents. My favorite colors are green and blue, so it sort of, you know, goes along with that. I thought green and blue kind of look cool together. So we have some kind of neon green buttons, which look really snazzy, and you can see the Deadpan Robot symbol there. That's awesome. And on top of that, we have a handful of assorted backlights. These are just single color backlights. I was thinking of my RGB controller chip can actually be modified to work with single color backlights to control intensity, basically the brightness. And so I wanted to play around with that. Maybe I'd give it, you know, yellow green or orange. Well, orange might actually look kind of interesting with this blue case. But yeah, I think keeping with the green and blue theme, I think kind of a greenish color for the backlight would look kind of cool. So I'll think about doing that, or I could just throw an RGB backlight in this. But yeah, I have a couple single color backlights. I have clear plastic buttons. These are really cool, and I will probably go about actually lighting these up as well using the extra channel that I have available on my RGB controller chip. And these are some bivert chips, and I have some spare boards here as well, just to play around with and have another project to do, and I'll show you guys kind of the entire process of that as well. That'll make a very cool series. So I'd like to thank buddy Juan from Deadpan for sending all this stuff over, future video content. And also I'd like to thank 2nd Avenue Electronics for these deals that I scored. So anyway, I've rambled on for long enough, so hopefully you guys enjoyed the video, and I can just get all my swag in shot right here. I'll probably do another video in the future when I can figure out how to open these without damaging them. I'll show you guys the inside of these. That should be very interesting. Anyway, hopefully you guys enjoyed the video, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.